Okay, welcome everybody. Hang on, I just got notified that I needed to speak into the mic a little bit more. Thank you everyone for showing up tonight. This is great to see so many faces. My name is John Lohr. I'm chair of the Millis Finance Committee. I'd like to call tonight's meeting in order on today, Wednesday, April 9th at 7 p.m. Actually, it's about 7:01. But before we get going, I'd like to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, starting off with to my left.
Pete Berube.
Sarah Reyes.
Joyce Boyardi.
Mike Crone.
Kathy McInnes. Jen Zaretsky.
Jody Garson.
Perfect. And we have Peter Underhill, who's going to be joining us via Zoom in about a half hour or so. So that's great. Before we get going on to our agenda this evening, I'd like to remind everyone that there are many ways that they can access the Finance Committee's material, starting off with your local access at home on TV. You can go through Comcast Channel 6, Verizon Channel 38. You can also go to millismedia.org online, or you can go to YouTube and watch the live streaming. And just like all the other boards and committees, you can attend in person, and we have a nice audience here tonight, so thank everybody for showing up and being here. Last, all the material that we have and that we will be reviewing tonight is available on the Millis website under the Finance Committee webpage, and you can find all that information there. And last but not least, just as I'm doing right now, if you go to the podium or if you go to the table, please be 4 inches from the microphone. Just a friendly reminder that we need to have you speak into the microphone so it can be picked up on all the different media sources here. With that said, why don't we get going? Our representative, James Arena DeRosa, could not make it tonight. He's still in session right now, so he let me know probably about a half hour ago and we're going to try to find another date and time, probably in the fall, when things are a little bit more friendly from a schedule standpoint. Now, we can get to Tri-County. So let's start off with Tri-County. I know we have a few, 2 different booklets and materials, so walk us through it, please. Please share the mic.
I'm going to hang out in the back because they are the people with the details you most need.
Okay, sounds good.
Or Jane, you can stay over here at the mic, this mic if you need to.
If need be.
If I need to speak there,
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Karen McGuire, the superintendent at Tri-County. Thank you very much for asking us to come here to the town of Millis. And with me this evening is Dan Haynes, our school business manager. And Dan will go through our budget documents where we just had the Tri-County School Committee just approved our budget last month. So we're just coming around now to make sure that everyone gets the information for your town meetings. We had a meeting with our town administrators last Monday and went through all the details of our budget and the financing for the school building project at that meeting as well. So Dan?
Hi, everybody. Great to be in Millis. Do we want to, everybody has a copy of the document that I distributed earlier. Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll start on page 3, and the page numbers on the bottom right, they're very lightly shaded. But this is the Chapter 70 summary for Tri-County. Just wanted to quickly go through this. So our aid for this year for Chapter 78 is projected to increase by $74,475. The required district contributions, contributions of each of our member towns is going to increase by $1.6 million. The increase in our net school spending during this fiscal year, fiscal 26, 95.7% of that will be paid for by the towns, and only 4.3% by the state. When we look at Chapter 70 as a total, it's about $7.3 billion statewide. It's a $422 million increase over the prior year. 20 districts receive 73% of that increase. We, like the other 231 districts, only receive a minimal amount that's set by the governor each year. And in the budget, that's $75 per pupil. That's where the 74,475 increase comes into play. So that incremental increase in Chapter 70 aid doesn't go a long way in our budget. So to illustrate, actually, on page 4, let's just talk about the required minimum contributions set by the Commonwealth of Mass in the Chapter 70 formula, based on the town's relative wealth. So you can see the fiscal '25 enrollment numbers of 942 and broken out by our 11-member communities, and then in fiscal '26, 993. That's a change of 51 students, an increase from the prior year. Now, that increase, as far as required minimum contributions go, is that 1.651624 that I talked about. And you can see how that increase is impacting each of the communities with the increase in students. Millis had the largest increase in students during this past fiscal year, 11 additional students in our cohort. And the state has determined that allows the town to pay an additional $213,047 towards the Millis assessment, or the Tri-County assessment for
Okay.
Millis. We only had one town with a decrease in students, Walpole, and they had a decrease in their required minimum contribution that followed along with that decrease. So on page 5, I've showed this illustration many years. This is a 10-year look. The green bar in this chart is Chapter 70 aid, and it's pretty flat. That's the minimal aid. We are held harmless as a district for our state aid, so we receive the minimum amount set by the governor. The blue is the assessments to the towns. And you can see that that increases dramatically, and that's increasing with our budget because the state has determined that the towns can pay 95% of that increase. On page 7 is another look at the enrollment numbers as a percentage, and the increase and decrease for each community. Our largest community is North Attleboro, about 26% of our district enrollment. Millis is increased by 0.92% with those 11 additional students from 3.61 to 4.53. So on page 9, go through the revenues of the district a little bit. We had a unique situation in fiscal '24. We had what we call excess E&D. Every school district in the Commonwealth must certify their E&D at excess and deficiency, similar to a town's free cash. It was certified at $2,108,004, which is about $936,000 above what we were entitled to have, which is 5% of our subsequent year's budget, capital, and operating. I'll talk a little bit about how we applied that excess E&D to benefit the communities.
Yeah, could you just clarify and explain E&D to us?
E&D it's similar to free cash. At the end of the year, we submit a balance sheet to the Department of Revenue,
Okay,
and they certify our number of fund balance,
understood. Is it an acronym though, E&D?
excess and deficiency.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the term used for school districts as
Thank you.
opposed to free cash. Maybe they should have called it all free cash. Would have been easier. So there you see the additional state aid projected at $144,000. That is higher than the number that I talked about on the first slide because we had additional state aid that we received this year beyond what we originally budgeted. So the original budget, we budget this in January, February, and then the budget is set in June, July. So there was a change in the amount per pupil, which accounted for that difference in Chapter 70 aid. Regional transportation aid increased by $59,000. These two numbers come off of our cherry sheet, similar to a town's cherry sheet, but it's just for school districts. Local revenues, that's interest income, some non-resident tuition amounts, Medicaid funding. So that excess E&D was really generated primarily through interest earnings. The district borrowed $20 million to start the building project in January of '24 and earned substantial earnings for that 6-month period.
Yeah.
So that was far exceeded the amount that we originally budgeted, which led to that excess E&D. So you can see we're applying $1.5 million of E&D to reduce the assessments of the member communities in fiscal '26. That's an increase of almost $1.5 million. The substantial increase in the town assessments is really based on the debt service. The first year of the debt service payments will take place in this fiscal 2026. On page 10, our operating budget, $33,711,787. Bulk of that is that debt service payment that I talked about. We have 3 areas of increase that we've recognized as a district towards the budget. Salary increases, about $624,000 across the district. Benefits, health insurance, not sure how Millis is faring, but we've seen some double-digit increases, and we have one of those double-digit years.
Millis has as well. You're not alone.
So we're budgeting about $400,000 in additional health insurance costs.
Okay.
And utility expenses. So we don't have the solar array, so our electrical costs have increased. But we have Eversource, we have gas for heat, and that has increased substantially. So we budgeted an additional $155,500 for those utility expenses. So our operating budget, if you exclude the debt, is about a $1,097,000 increase. That's 4.65%. So it's fairly reasonable as a percentage, and it is less than the required minimum contribution calculation set by the state.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Take some questions as we go here. Yep, go ahead, Pete.
Mr. Haynes, real quick, you mentioned that on slide 10, you said that your pupil services budget increased by $600,000, but I don't see that figure on here. I'm guessing it's on here. It just needs to be added with something else.
The salary increase?
Yes.
It's spread amongst every category of it.
Okay,
of
okay.
cost.
Thank you.
Yes, that's the entire district.
All right, I'm just trying to track along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the debt issuance, I think maybe I've talked about this before, but I'll just go over it again. January 7th, 2025, we had a bond sale.
Are we on page 12 now?
We're on page 12,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
go
for-
ahead.
On OPEB funding, what's the total OPEB liability at this point for the?
Our OPEB is about 22 million. We have an OPEB trust that has somewhere in the vicinity of 2 million, depending on where the stock market is today or yesterday.
Today, it's good.
Today, it's good.
That's your liability?
That's what we have in a trust,
It's what you have in the trust?
in the trust.
And
We have
will-
about a $23 million.
Okay, and,
OPEB liability.
and is that in excess of what you will need, or is there a deficiency anticipated over time?
Well, we're going to continue to fund our OPEB into the trust at $150,000 a year, but that will not make up for that
Right.
shortfall.
And are you is it the Norfolk County, is it your own retirement fund, or is it Norfolk County?
We're with the PCOT,
Oh,
Plymouth
okay.
County
Okay,
Trust.
okay, thank you.
So on page 12, thank you for getting me on the right page. The district sold $140 million in school bonds. We had 6 bids. We had a low bid of the true interest cost of 3.9899. That included a premium of 3.4 million. So what does that mean? We received $140 million, a little bit more, counting the premium, but we'll only pay back $136,975,000. So the premium that you receive by law has to be refinanced into the debt that you borrow. So we'll pay back less than we actually received. Saves about $8.9 million over the term of the debt from our original projections at the 4.5% rate. On page 13, you can see the actual debt service, $8,520,053, spread per pupil back to the member communities. Our excess E&D that I talked about, that we had in 2024, was $936,000. The school committee took a vote to reduce the debt assessment for the communities by the amount of that excess E&D. So the net debt service for fiscal '26 is what's being assessed to the member towns. So we applied almost $1 million of excess E&D towards the debt assessment to the communities. So let's talk a little bit about the Millis metrics. There's a chart that has the Millis Foundation enrollment. Does everybody see that? It's 10 years.
Yep.
So it's come up from a relatively small number in 2017 of 29 students to a high of 70 in 2021. Dipped back down to 34 in 2025, and this past year, up to 45. There's your 11 student increase reflected in that chart.
Just while we're on this page.
Yeah.
Financial, non-financial, what's the student cap at Tri-County going for? Is it 1,000 students?
It's 1,000.
It is 1,000.
Yeah.
And will continue to be 1,000 with the new
The new building.
building.
Yeah, the enrollment for the new building is 1,000.
And forgive my ignorance, but does that cap hit every year? Or like, are there more students trying to get into Tri-County than you have spots available? And if, how do the first come, first serve lottery, how does it work?
Yeah,
Just
so,
curious.
so we are in a situation now where we have more applicants than available seats within the district.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case a few years ago. This is my 4th year at Tri-County. My first year at Tri-County, we were still taking students from the town of Attleboro as part of the district. Sort of a side district agreement, if you will. They weren't part of the 11-member community, they were an add-on. But Attleboro built their own school with 17 vocational programs during that time, so now they're in that high school, which is opened. We, at that time, anticipated that we would continue to take out-of-district students because we didn't have enough in-district students to fill the seats. But the last 2 years, that's changed. We're in a situation now where we have about 250 additional applicants than we do seats from in-district students.
And how are they selected?
Yeah.
So it's an application process. It's the students submit their grades, attendance, behavior. It is a criteria that they apply. And then there's an interview. The interview is very heavily weighted about with interest, whether the student's interested, and recommendation from their counselor. And the seat allocation, if you picture the 11-member Tri-County community, which is Sherburne all the way to Seekonk, and whatever representation of students, each town has K through 8, that percentage of students would be the number of seats that the town would be allocated at Tri-County. Does that make sense? So if you take all of the students and add them up, whatever percentage of students you own in the district would be the percentage of 9th grade seats that would be available. The situation we run into, though, is not all of our 11-member communities use all of the seats that are allocated to them. We had 2 towns, Sherburne and Medfield, that were not using their seats. Sherburne sort of caught up with that. Medfield is there are more students from Medfield applying now than we've seen in a number of years. So we hope to see over the next couple of years the whole thing even out.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Do you open it up, say your seats are not filled from, is it a first come, first serve for the open seats that are available? Or is it, again, done by percentages from each town? Like, does Millis get a certain percentage that, yes, if there are open seats, they can go, or Medfield or Medway?
So in years past, it would be depending on how many applications we had. Some towns had sufficiently more applications than others, so they would have a higher amount. But this year, it's pretty evenly spread. So what we'll do this year for the seats that the towns don't use is we'll use that same formula to try to keep it, to try to keep it even. Ideally, we would like all of the towns to use the seats that they're allocated, so that you'd be able to look all the way through to pre-kindergarten and make a determination of what your debt would look like.
Go ahead.
Do you know what Millis's numbers were for the upcoming school year? Did they use all of their seats allotted, or did you have more applicants than seats
There are more applicants than seats.
for this coming
For
school
this
year?
coming school year, yeah. The application acceptances have just gone out, so we don't know. Typically in this district, there'll be a good handful of students that apply to multiple schools or that decide to stay where they are, maybe on a sports team or met a girl, whatever. But they'll decide to stay. So that initial wave of application acceptances has gone out just the last few days. So we'll know better what it looks like in a couple of weeks.
Can you share the number of applicants from Millis?
I want to say like 28. Is that
28.
about, yeah. And the applications, though, will still be open. We don't close them
Doesn't
until the
sound-
end of the
okay.
summer. Yeah. But as
Tha-
of right now, it's about that, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm the school committee chair for Millis. Thanks for coming. I was just listening, and can you just let me know how many, you might have said this already, so forgive me, how many seats that Millis gets? How many seats does Millis get this year, this coming year?
I want to say it's 22. I don't know that it's quite that. It might be 21 or 22. I have to go back and look. It changes every year depending on the enrollment, because the class sizes go up and down. So yeah, it's in that range. Yeah.
So is that like average for Millis? It's above the 20-ish range every year?
Yes,
that we
although.
get for seats?
Yes, although a number of years ago, when we had very few applicants from Sherburne, from Medfield, and even from Walpole and Seekonk at that time, and Millis had more applicants, it was a higher number that was accepted at that time. So that's why you have that, back in 2021, that peak of 70 students.
Those are from spots from other towns that we
Yes.
used. Millis, the
right.
town was. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah.
So the allotment, or let's put it this way, are we talking about allotment for the freshman year,
Yes,
right? So there are 28 spots for the freshman year?
20-something, yeah. It's not quite 28, I don't think,
Okay.
yeah.
And the total we have in there right now is 45.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it, and you said there's an abundance of applications to the allotment for Millis? Are there more applicants than spots for Millis?
For all of our towns, with the exception of Medfield, there are more students applied than there are allotted seats available.
So are we on target, if we extrapolate this out, are we on target for 120 students?
No, you'd still stay, I would say, in the,
Well, if we add them each year,
well,
if
that's
we've
the
got-
total this year.
Right.
So if it's 22 students, if that's what was last year's?
Times 4,
Yeah, 25 applicants and 18 students.
Yeah, so 18 came. So of the students we accept, a number will turn us down,
Yeah.
right? And then we backfill with others, so.
so total enrollment for all 4 years right now is 45.
Total enrollment right now, 2026 is 45 students. What's the grade 9?
Junior class only has 9.
Your
Okay.
junior class is very low, yeah. So this year's grade 9 students is like 22 or.
But that's your
it's like,
question,
yeah.
though, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
increase over time.
Yeah, and your anticipation for a shiny new school, are we really anticipating Westwood meeting their allotments each year? Have you thought, have you
Medfield?
guys been thinking about that? Millis, I'm sorry, Millis. I do it all the time.
That's okay, I say, yeah, I
You
say
lived somewhere for
Southeastern.
38
Yeah.
years, you just
No, I
can't get
it,
out of your
yeah.
head.
No, I was at Southeastern up in, for 23 years, so I do that.
So for
I do
Boston,
the same
how-
thing. Yeah, exactly. Well, Medford. Yeah, so, yeah, there are a few things going on right now for vocational schools. There's a lot in the news, so for some of our towns that ordinarily wouldn't have considered a school like Tri-County, we had a reputation for a while of not having academics, which is not real. But some people in some of our towns thought that was the situation, but it's not. So we are seeing an increase in some students from towns that ordinarily were underrepresented. So to your point, with the new school, I think that we'll see, from my experience being at a newer school and then coming to Tri-County, you do see an initial bump and then it sort of settles out. But for all of the towns, not just, it wouldn't just be explicit to Millis.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining all that. Just, it's good to understand the metrics behind the financial numbers, so I appreciate
And
it.
it is confusing because it goes all the way until the end of August, right? For students to change their mind, make up their mind, apply, and, so it does shift.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay,
Yep.
continue with
Go
my
back to the
somewhat
presentation.
boring presentation.
Yeah, where do you, what, 16?
So,
16?
yeah, we can talk about the local contribution across districts. You may have seen this, as this is town-wide. So this is the Millis Chapter 70 apportionment sheet. So you can see that Millis Public Schools themselves had an increase of, from 1,086, actually a decrease of 5 students, but an increase in your required minimum contribution towards those schools. And Tri-County, an increase of 11, and the $213,000 increase that I already talked about. So, I mean, what they say is the dollars follow the students, but this is a wealth-based calculation as determined by the state. On the next slide, this is an analysis of the assessment increase for Millis. So again, 11 additional students, state-determined required minimum, increase of 213. Assessment above the minimum. So we are going to assess all of our communities at the minimum required contribution within the net school spending Chapter 70 formula. Net transportation assessment, that's our transportation costs less what we anticipate being reimbursed for. Apportioned to all the member communities, that's $20,000. And the debt assessment that we talked about, that we looked at, $348,062 as adjusted by the excess E&D. So the assessment's increasing by $516,873. $318,000 of that is debt.
Got it. I think we're good, okay? Questions? Go ahead.
So a couple of other things I just wanted to call your attention to. This is the third legislative session in a row that we have had some of our, Tri-County has 16 legislative folks between our communities, whether it's senators or our state reps.
Yep.
And we currently have, again, a bill to address the MSBA funding. Right now, the way that the MSBA reimburses vocational school building projects, you've heard me say this every time we've come here, is at the same rate as a comprehensive school, although vocational schools significantly more expensive to build. The legislation that's proposed asks for an 80% reimbursement for vocational school building projects. Right now, with Keefe Tech and Shawsheen Votech in Billerica adding to the MSBA pipeline, it now puts 11 vocational schools in that pipeline, which represents 127 towns in the Commonwealth. So all of those towns together are asking for this legislation because it would significantly help the finances. The representatives from this area, James, of course, Irina DeRosa, and then both Senator Roush and Senator Spilker are in favor of this legislation, which is good news. But if the time when it is scheduled for committee, it's been sent to the Education Committee. We don't have a date for the hearing yet, but I will send the town manager, as I do every year, the information once we have that for you to write a letter of support, if you are so inclined, to support that legislation. There is also a bill filed by Marcus Vaughn and Senator Fatman to look at the MSBA funding just altogether, to do a study of the MSBA funding. So once that is at committee, again, it's been referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Once we have a date on that, I'll send that to you as well. So who knows?
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, more and more. It's, and I say too, I'm a taxpayer myself, and I'm also in a community that is looking at rebuilding a vocational school, although it's a few years behind Tri-County, so I anticipate the school I'm looking at would be about $350 million. So I understand the impact from the taxpayer standpoint. And we'll continue to work at this, and hopefully we can get some momentum this time.
Agreed. It'd be helpful for everybody. Any other questions?
Could you give us, Mr. Chair, could you give us maybe the 60-second rundown on how your construction is going?
Yeah,
It's
so.
mucky.
It's mucky and muddy at this point. We were delayed, so this is another reason why we were able to, or why we had the interest that accrued, because we were delayed by a few months with conservation. We had a solar array that was up behind Tri-County that we had removed, and when we removed it, there was a disagreement about what we were calling puddles and what,
I can imagine.
wetlands, but our position was that man-made wetlands aren't real, it was a runoff from the solar. So that went back and forth for a while, and we were able to come to an agreement with it. We now have salamander crossing signs as part of the project, and we had to shift the building over about 20 feet. But we were able to move on. So we're holding our breath with the tariffs, hopefully, because our steel is now heading to process, and it's processed in Canada, so coming back across, that would be $2 million that we weren't anticipating. But with our contingencies, we're hoping, but we're ahead of schedule and on budget with it, yeah, it's moving right along. We anticipate opening September of 2027, and yeah.
I'm on the website now. Do you provide updates to the website, the tricountybuilding.com website?
Yes, so
Okay.
there are videos that do an overview of the project.
Yep.
We have a time-lapse camera that's on the back of the school, so we'll be putting that up, I would say probably by the end of next week, the new time-lapse that we have. And yeah, everything's available there, all of the communications and the meeting notes and everything is
Great.
there. Yeah.
Cameras for the salamander crossing?
We'll see about that, yeah. The students designed the signs, and we had a big school-wide vote to pick the best sign, yeah, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
About the state reimbursement, I know you take away for fields and everything. Do you have an estimate of what the percentage is now at the state level for that reimbursement?
Yeah, so it's a 56.2% reimbursement. I get it mixed up, but it's
56.2?
but it's of what they would call allowable, right?
Yes.
Eligible. So it comes down to about 33%. About when it's all said and done, which is why we're asking for the 80%, because for us that's I think more
So 30, what
appropriate.
was it, 30?
Yeah, about 33. Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I mean by the difference between a comprehensive school and, when you talk about classroom space, to reimburse at the square footage amount, and when we have to build a medical and dental lab, line them with lead, that's a little different than an English classroom, but yet it's reimbursed at the same price, square foot, as an English classroom. And then things like the library and the gym, locker room space, is reimbursed at half of what it would be in a comprehensive school, because our vocational, the MSBA position on our vocational school is that we wouldn't need the library space or the gym for all students, which is not real, but, yeah.
Mr. Chair, one last
Yeah, go
thing.
ahead.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
know.
that's all right. Go ahead.
But the 4.6% increase that you've had, that's pretty remarkable considering what your school offers and all the courses compared to what's around nowadays. So it's obviously got a really sharp pencil. So on behalf of me as a taxpayer, I thank you for that.
So he's an auditor before he was the business manager, so it's like, yeah, you can't help it.
You work on the
That's
side?
good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming down tonight. I know it's taking time out of your day, but appreciate the update, and glad things are relatively on track, even with the salamanders.
Jane, do you?
Did you, oh yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's all right. I also would like to express my deep gratitude for both of these people who came here tonight, because they have all the numbers and the information, and I just want to thank you again. And I am telling you, they work incredibly hard, and you would be amazed at what goes on at our school committee meetings. It's quite impressive. And then the subcommittees that many of us are on in addition to that. So, thank you very much.
What subcommittees are you on, if I might ask, Mr. Chair?
I am
In case
on
we have an interest.
policy and legislation.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
All right, to stick to the budget theme, Jody.
Good night, Jane.
All right. Fiscal year 26 revenue review.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll begin. I just want to share some of the good news that I was able to share with the Select Board on Monday night about where our budget is at, and we'll certainly get into the revenue side of it. And then later, we're going to get into the articles, I believe, of the town meeting warrant, which there's been a few changes. to those.
Correct.
There's been a few changes to those articles, so I will touch upon those a little later.
But we're going through the whole budget, though, right now, right?
We
Not
can
just-
go,
or
we
ju-
can
or
go with
just-
whatever.
Not just the revenue, but the.
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
The
Well,
whole
We can
thing,
talk
right?
about the budget.
Yep.
So, I just want to start with talking a little bit about the fact that we were successful in managing the budget in a way that we were able to meet the school committee's request for their level service budget, plus an additional $72,342 above that request, equaling a total of a 6% budget increase for the school department. So we're very happy about that. I've had a number of discussions with the superintendent of schools. I know he's here this evening. And he's worked very closely with us, and we were happy to be able to share that with him upon the conclusion of our review of the budget, that we were able to do that. So on the municipal side of the ledger, with a equal 6% increase, we were able to successfully budget for one additional full-time highway laborer for the Department of Public Works. We've been working on that for a number of years. We've tried through overrides and other means, which unfortunately have not been successful, but we were able to squeeze that into this year's budget, which we're very happy about that. We were also able to really right-size two positions, two department heads in the SAIU, that really the last two department heads that weren't at full staffing level. We added 5 hours to the IT director to match all of the department heads, and an additional 2.5 hours for the recreation director, and again, to bring them up in line with all the other department heads in the SEIU. Both those departments are doing great jobs. They're getting grants, they're moving their programs forward, and we're very happy with that progress there.
Could I just pause for a second on
Absolutely.
the contracts? So just for everybody's information, where do we stand on all the contracts,
So
both
all-
municipal side and school?
All 5 collective bargaining contracts have been ratified.
Okay.
So those are complete, so those are all built into the budget.
Okay,
So you won't see any additional articles, you won't see any additional funding lines that say general collective bargaining. It's all built into the budget.
thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So, just to clarify, the schools are not looking at a deficit right now based on the budget that they submitted. Is that correct?
It's my understanding, and again, I don't want to speak for the superintendent, but it's my understanding that the school
He's
has a
nodding.
level service budget, and there will not be any layoffs at the schools related to the budget for this year.
Thank you.
Do you have a question, Joyce?
So there was a 300 and some, 342,
30,000.
the deficit, that came,
So basically, by getting to the 6%, it gets the schools about 400,000 above the 4% mark,
okay,
which is the 6% mark,
Okay.
which is where we're at.
thank you.
So, again, you stole my thunder there, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
But
You
yes.
can repeat
this-
it.
This does include all contractual obligations. In addition, outside the municipal school caps, we were able to budget for a new human resources department, which has been a high priority for the administration and the select board. That department, as we discussed at a prior meeting, will consist of a full-time HR director, a full-time HR generalist at the schools, an upgrade of the current benefits administrator in the municipal departments to an HR generalist, and we'll add an 18-hour-a-week department assistant to allow the current benefits coordinator to fully carry out their new duties as an HR generalist. So that covers the entire department.
Got a question on that? Go ahead, Mike.
So with respect to the money that we're obligated for Tri-Valley's construction, which obviously we didn't have much of last year, that's also been factored into the operating budget for this year?
It has. It's actually located in an article in the annual town meeting warrant, so we'll get to that.
Okay. But if
Yeah.
that warrant doesn't go through?
If that warrant article doesn't go through, we have problems.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go
I
ahead.
might just do the signed contracts, Mr. Kaczynski, include a health insurance buyout option yet?
They don't. What we've had discussions with every union, and every union has indicated that they are accepting and would welcome that discussion. And we do plan on having that discussion this summer. And that is dealt with a little differently than regular union negotiations. We meet with something called the PEC Committee, the Public Employee Committee, and that committee is made up of representatives of each union as well as retiree. And they review data from the town. We have meetings, and then those individuals go back to their unions, and if we have a majority vote, and that's majority membership, so it's based on how many employees in your group. So the school has about a 52% majority, the school teachers. So that union is pretty much the driving factor in that discussion. But we do want to meet with everyone and get buy-in from everyone on any changes. So we will be looking at not only the opt-out over the summer, and that'll be one of the first jobs of a new HR director, is to work with us on that, but also to look at shopping around for other insurance. The town has been on GIC insurance since towns were eligible to join GIC, which is, I think is about 10 or 11 years ago. And this year, their increase was around 11%. Some other private outfits were less, some were more. I've heard anywhere from 5% to 18% on various towns on health insurance adjustments. So we do want to go into that work and looking at other options moving forward. So again, it's another opportunity for a lot of savings in working with new human resource staff and doing that research.
Thank you. Karen, do you have something to
I
add?
was just going to add that if anyone is interested in looking at the memorandum of agreements, they're all listed on the select board's page of the website on the left-hand side under union contracts, so you can look at the ins and outs of what was agreed to. Thank you.
Thank you.
And over the next few months, we'll incorporate those into the base contracts. It just takes a little time to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that covers most of the 10,000-foot overview of the budget. We can certainly, after we talk about the revenues, we can go through any of the other documents that you received. Just to give a quick overview of the revenue picture, and then I'll let the finance director add a little color to my comments afterwards.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
sorry, I've been trying to interrupt there before we
Oh, I'm
move
sorry,
on.
I didn't see you. I apologize. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jody.
So with these new positions that have been added to the budget, will the amount that you have here for employee benefits be sufficient to cover those new employees?
Yes, we did figure in the new employee benefits, and for the department, it's really just two. So it's the HR generalist at the school and then the HR director. So there's addition of two full-time benefits.
I thought that you mentioned a DPW laborer as well.
Oh, I thought you just meant the human resource department.
No,
I'm sorry.
I mean
Yes,
all new
yes.
employees.
Yes, so that's
that would be-
three. Yes, there'll be three.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Jody.
No worries. Thank you.
All right.
So again, Mr. Chairman, on the revenue part of the ledger that we're looking at, our new growth estimate for FY '26 is $600,000. That is declining a little bit. And the ebb and flow of business and new growth, we always track that, and we keep in close contact with the town's assessors to make sure that we're being conservative enough, and we feel that that number is conservative. We do have a number of potential projects moving forward, but we're going through a little bit of a lull, a short-term lull, so we want to be just cautious. We're hopeful that in the future year, that will go back up. But that depends a lot on the national and state economy.
Is that 600,000 growth on any of the handouts? Or is that just
It's
a-
just
is
on,
that-
it's
are you
just on
quoting-
my, it's just on my memo that I
Okay.
sent out to the committee,
Okay,
my email.
on the email itself?
But do you have the,
That's right, I just didn't know if we should be looking at something
no,
on the documents.
What's the primary driver of the growth, you know?
It's mostly residential. We do have some upgrades to buildings and things like that, but as far as base construction, it's mostly residential.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
just an FYI, I checked last week with the planning board, and there's nothing on their docket for any sort of construction or anything, so I think it's telling.
Yes, so that's certainly why we're taking a more conservative view on the new growth aspect than prior years. We have estimated much higher numbers in prior years when the Glen was being built and other things were going on in the community.
Sure, absolutely, a lot of other things too.
But we do
Go ahead.
currently, 4 inches. We do currently have growth going on now, though. It's not that we don't have growth. We have construction going on. I mean, I see it.
We do have some approved projects that are being worked on, but there is a little bit of a lull in new projects coming forward right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have something to do with the uncertainty of the times. But, you know, we're hoping things settle and that improves, but again, that's why we're taking the
Yep.
conservative approach. And on the, looking at state aid, unfortunately, state aid over the past, really, 8 to 10 years has been relatively flat. We expect the same for next year. We expect either, whether you say an increase or decrease, it's probably less than 1 or 2/10%. It's very small. So it'll be virtually the same. So we're really not making any progress on any state aid,
And just like-
which is one of the big cost drivers that you see in us trying to keep up with inflation and other pressures, is that we historically, before that time, we could count on a considerable increase in state aid every year, and for the past 10 years, it's really been on the backs of the local taxpayers
Yeah.
to cover all increased costs.
I mean, essentially flat. Is that on the offset, the 272,000? Does that sound about right, at the end of the budget?
Actually,
Or is that a different number?
that particular number is an offset for school choice in the libraries. That is money from the state that goes directly to those departments.
Oh, okay. Is the state aid number on here, or do you have that number?
Absolutely. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll kind of talk about the revenues just a little
Yeah,
bit.
please do.
Okay.
Yep,
So
yep.
just to provide some framework, generally speaking, with regards to revenues and how the town collects revenues, the 4 main areas are raised through taxation. That's the levy that we talk about.
Yep.
That's comprised of the prior year's levy plus new growth that's captured. Last year, we captured $955,667 in new growth. We add 2.5 to the base factor, and that becomes our new base for the next year. So when the town administrator was talking about, you know, the new growth that we're estimating for this year, we take the base factor, add the new growth, plus any debt exclusions or overrides, and that becomes the total amount that you can raise through taxation. So that's bucket number 1. For Millis, that makes up about $35,839,000. The next area that we focus on is state aid. That's the second bucket. That we receive about $6.8 million from the state to support our budget. The next area we look at is local receipts. Local receipts are comprised of your motor vehicle excise tax, building permits, license fees, any pilot agreements, which would be payments in lieu of taxes, any type of intermunicipal agreement that the town may have set up. That becomes another revenue source for the town. And finally, we also have a revenue source that becomes available resources from other areas of the budget and/or other areas of the town. So for example, this is where your indirect costs come into play. You also can have revenues transferred in from other funds, such as ambulance receivables, or maybe special revenue funds that are on the books for the town. So between these three sources, the levy, local receipts, and state aid, as well as those other available revenue sources, that becomes your gross available revenues that are used to support the budget. So for this year, the major difference, I would say, between this year and last year is our ability to do a little bit more analysis around the local receipt portion of how we've budgeted in the past, and been able to take a little bit more pragmatic approach to looking at 5 and 10-year averages of what we have received for local receipts, and have been able to build up that estimate a bit more in order to support the budget in such a way that we were able to mitigate any, critical impacts to both the school and the town's budget through supporting the operation, with that revenue source. You'll see the impact of that is that potentially down the road, you're not gonna have as much free cash. So that being said, $3.4 million is what we started the fiscal year with free cash that was certified from last year. So if you think of it like, we kind of saved that for a rainy day, we're using it for our operation. So we're still gonna have some free cash through the same mechanisms that we would previously by, not being super aggressive with our revenue estimates, but being pretty practical about what we can anticipate receiving. And that way, again, we can fund the necessary pieces of the budget and avoid those critical components from layoffs and things like that. So that's really the big difference you'll see in revenue forecasts from last year to this year. I don't know if anyone has questions on anything I discussed so far. I'd be happy to answer questions.
So in one sentence here, taxes have gone up, state aid's pretty much flat, and the other additional increases through the local receipts is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I don't know if recently, but it's been quite a few years to see revenue forecast, the 5-year plan. Can you provide that to the board at some point?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. What does that show, based on?
Yeah, so I think I think that you can get a little ahead of yourself anywhere beyond like a 5-year forecast, just because it's really unpredictable, for a 10-year look back. But I like to kind of look back 3, look ahead 5, and that should give you a good, barometer for where you've been, where you're going, and then we can predict through some other measures like a 5-10-year local receipt history, which I think was provided to the board. But if not, I can certainly get that, and that helps us predict, the reasonability of what we put on paper for future years. And I think that you'll also notice that within that, you can understand the percentage jumps from year to year. So if you look back on that particular resource, you'll notice that I believe it was in 2022, we had like a 25% increase in local receipts. And the major driver there was the cannabis impact, right? So you have the HCA funding through the budget, but that was, a 5-year window. So you're going to see that drop off. So we have to look at both, 5 and 10-year averages to be practical about, what cadence we can expect for local receipt revenue on a going forward basis. But I can certainly provide that to you guys.
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering,
Yeah.
do you know offhand what you're forecasting in percentages for growth down the road?
For new growth,
Revenue, the entire, just the revenue picture.
That's what
well,
you're gonna provide? The 5-year?
Yes, we can provide that for sure. And it is made up of each component, so I will say that, the revenue on the levy is gonna be a 2.5, no matter what. I mean, given new growth, that'll go up from 2.5, but it will be a base factor of 2.5 over the previous year. State aid, again, we're kind of looking flat. We can do a look back, but that's kind of a pretty flat estimate. And really, local receipts is the only one that I would say that we can hone in on with best guesses based on our track record thus far. But I can certainly project that out. I know the previous finance director had a spreadsheet that we would estimate maybe 2.5% year over year in, say, ambulance receipts, or 1% year over year in local receipts. I think we can get drill down on that a little bit more, but certainly give a projection for revenue over the next few years.
Go ahead, Mike.
Could you recount for me again, how much of free cash are we putting toward the budget this year?
Nothing towards the operational.
Nothing toward operational?
Correct. We're not using free cash to support the operational budget. The only free cash that we will be using to support it are the HCA funds that were specifically earmarked for particular things in the budget, and that totaled $182,909.51. And that's on the free cash summary.
And that was one of the handouts Mike provided, so a few things from the fall annual town meeting and the spring annual town meeting.
Welcome.
And I think you just received another document, the new growth history, so certainly, you know, if you have any questions regarding that down the road, be happy to answer that. I think it kind of paints the picture of the ebb and flow of new growth that towns experience. I mean, a lot of that was the Glen Ellen, as well as, you know, some of the other residential construction, for the most part.
Regarding new growth as well, our principal assessor has a really good pulse on where we are with our construction. I know, Joyce, you had mentioned, you know, we see construction going on, so how does that translate to new growth? And the short of it is, new growth happens over time in terms of we are able to capture a certain percentage of that value, not just from start date till, okay, the building is up, we have an occupancy permit and someone is holding a business there or living there, now we get to tax it. The town actually is able to capture revenue based on a percentage of the value of the projected project. So you're not gonna see, again, something 0 to 500,000 on the tax roll. You're gonna see that at 100,000, you know, just for the land and maybe a foundation, and then you're gonna see a little bit more. So new growth phases in over time. So where we all might see, hey, that new building, we must have a, you know, whole lot more revenue there. You're gonna see that that's been captured over maybe 2 or 3 years before it actually comes to full value. So the way that we project new growth is looking at open building permits, looking at where we are in those phases of construction, and then making an educated, I don't want to say a guess or an assumption, but we get an educated number on what those projects are valued at and what we can capture. So by June 30th of every year, even right now, we have about $300,000 of, I want to say, guaranteed growth. So the other $300,000 is what we're projecting. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can reasonably anticipate another $300,000 between the next 6 months. And again, that's based on, it's a little bit of an art and science, based on what we do know for projects, what we can anticipate. And then we work very closely with builders to be able to actually have on-the-ground conversations to talk about their expectations and what they anticipate. You know, projects get delayed all the time, so we're able to get that real-time data to be able to help inform our figures. So I'm very confident with that being a solid number. And again, you know, if it comes in higher, then great. We don't want it to come in lower. So,
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Jody.
has that process changed for condominium projects? Because I know we had some challenges with Glen Ellen from when it became a construction project, because we weren't able to capture that value as a development project for quite some time.
I'm not sure what that, I don't know that I have the benefit of knowing what it was before versus now, but I can certainly look into that and follow up with you guys on it. I don't know if you have anything
Certainly, yeah,
about
we can
that.
certainly check with the principal assessor on that, but,
There was some time when it was a development project, but those individual units had not more or less been parceled out yet.
Right.
So we couldn't capture the higher value because those tax parcels had not yet been identified.
I see.
The land changed
I-
in value from a golf course to a development.
Right, right,
yeah, yeah.
But it took time
right.
for all of those parcels to come onto the tax roll.
recognized as
And in the meantime, we weren't able to capture any
You
of that
probably
increase in.
were stuck at one point where you could
Yes.
only capture up to, say, 50% of the value, as opposed to a move-in ready situation where,
At the time, it seemed like it was taking a very long
okay.
time.
I'm not sure, it sounds pretty specific, but I'd be happy to look into that a little bit more.
I just don't know if the laws have changed to be a little bit more flexible for municipalities.
That's a great question. I think we need to speak with with Terry, our principal assessor, about that. And there's no doubt, I think the developer like any developer would.
Of course.
Kind of delayed
Sure.
the transfer as late as possible in order to save funds on their end. So, but we'll check to see if the law has changed that allows us to enact those additional taxes earlier.
Because, I mean, that depends on the structure of a development project. Versus, one structure versus another will benefit the town more versus another. And obviously, developers want to maximize their profits. And that's why they're doing it.
And I'm sorry, Jody, were you making the connection between Glen Ellen and the condos and complexes that are going up now?
Well, it's just that the structure of a development how it's structured
Yeah,
can impact the town's tax rolls.
right.
If it's one parcel that's being developed, then it's a little bit easier to say, well, now it's 50% done.
Than a full development.
Right,
Yes.
versus a development that will be parceled out.
Of course,
Oh,
come
yeah.
on, come on
Let's
to
have
the
our resident
podium.
developer get up here and give us her expert opinion.
Ellen Rosenfeld, 12 Evergreen. It has nothing to do with the structure. What it has to do with is the phasing, and as they come on. It's not really the parcel. If there's a building permit that's been pulled for, let's say, 10 units, everybody phases, right? Because you can't do 350 units at the same time. So you phase the buildings in, and as you progress, they come online. But it has nothing to do whether it's a condo or a subdivision of 35 homes. It's just how the developer chooses to phase it. Now, I believe that that parcel was held up because of a lawsuit. Am I not correct about that? 2 lawsuits. Right? It held it up for quite a while. So, but as I said at my last meeting, in the old days, you used to get a couple of years before the town caught up with you. You could be living in your house for 2 years before the town caught up with you. Now, you post a sign on the property with a DEP number, and you get a tax bill. So the towns have caught up, and they tax the minute they can, and it follows it through. But it really doesn't have anything to do with the structure.
I think Millis has
you.
been good about taxing as soon
Yeah.
as the DP and ever since everybody's
we
been
become more
around,
efficient, it
since I've
sounds
been on
Don't
the planning
worry about that.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Pete.
Jody or Mike, if you could you clarify for me the note on the bottom of this table, which is your 6%, and it's more the assumptions down bottom that I'm asking about. It appears that we're adding a firefighter paramedic position, and there's a note on the same line, but not in parentheses, it says funded by ambulance receipts.
Can you
And-
please hold on until we find it?
Sure.
Which one is it?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just-
See, you don't have a color printer, so.
Good. And so I'm curious, is the,
Job opening.
where it says funded by ambulance receipts, is that applying to just the firefighter paramedic position, or does it also deal with the reorganization of internal staff, which I believe is more the HR functions that we're talking about?
Actually, no. It refers to the additional firefighter, and it also refers to a slight adjustment to increase a lieutenant to a captain.
Great,
I think
okay.
it's about $6,000 or $7,000 there. I'd have to
Okay.
go back and check that budget
Okay.
again.
That's a
But
softball question. That's
solely
good.
what-
Yep,
That's solely
no
what
doubt.
that would cover.
Okay.
yes.
I'm curious if, I think we have an ambulance reserve fund, and I would like to know how that fund is doing, and is it on track to fund an ambulance by the time we project that we'll need an ambulance? We haven't seen that in a while. We haven't asked for it, frankly, as far as I know, and perhaps Chief Barrett covered this. I wasn't here. I missed a meeting, so a perfectly acceptable answer is for me to go back and watch the video. Thank you.
Well,
Take that option.
I'll venture on an edge and say I believe there's still sufficient funding for that, but we will go back and take a look at that information again.
I know Chief Barrett is pretty good about setting the money aside for funding those.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Speaking of the new fire position coming from that same account, are the insurance and other uniforms and everything, is that coming from that account also? the health insurance benefits that go, people keep saying, oh, that position's going to be funded through the ambulance reserve fund, but are all the other dollars that are attributed to an employee in lieu of just the base salary, is that also coming from that fund?
It's my understanding that most of what that fund covers is basically the salaries. Yes, so.
So benefits would be outside of that.
I think, yeah, any additional costs,
Yep.
equipment, and benefits would be outside the ambulance receipts.
That is true. And the bucket of funds, as I was mentioning, levy, state aid, local receipts, and then other available funds. When I provide the breakdown for you, you'll notice that there's a section that's transfer from ambulance, from the ambulance revolving. So this year, that makes up about 957, I say about, and then I give you an exact number, 957,673.50. So just shy of $1 million will be coming from ambulance receivables to cover salaries as it relates to fire personnel.
Thank you.
Is there any way to just ask or get sure, what's the income each year from that to that fund?
From ambulance receipts?
Right.
It varies. Based on-
I'm just asking what it is now.
Yeah, I don't have the
What it
exact
was
numbers,
last
but I
year.
can
Yeah.
I can tell you they've been going up quite a bit. And the trend has been very much up. Because of the large amount of over 55 housing that's been built in the past 3 or 4 years, their ambulance receipts have been taking in a much higher amount of revenue. But we can get back those numbers back to you.
We receive about $60,000 a month in ambulance receivables, so,
Wow.
yeah.
At like $1,500 a pop if you go to a hospital.
They're busy.
They
Very
certainly
busy.
are.
I know. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Mr. Chair, any other questions on any of those other documents?
Yes. I have a lot of marks on my budget here. Just give me a second here. So, looking at the budget itself, so the 6% increase, the union contracts, the salaries increases, and in no particular order, just going down the list here on the first page, 6%, 6%, 8%. All those are factored in. What are some of the anomalies? I think I can understand, but just to make sure, so like IT administration is up 23%, and that's because of the IT positions, new hours?
Yes, the addition of 5 hours.
Okay.
That's correct. Plus
And- Correct, okay. And on the, again, refreshing my memory, the negative 52% on the registrars, do you know that?
So that was a decrease from the elections,
Yeah,
would you say registrars?
I did, and it's right underneath it too, I think, the elections.
Okay. I believe, and Mike, you can help me speak to this one, there were significant funds in there due to 4 elections as opposed to the 2. So we just would reduce that and look to fund that through other means for those anomaly years.
Got it.
If I may, while you're on the town clerk's budgets.
Please do.
Just want to touch upon the elections. There was a mistake in the elections since you received this.
A mistake in the elections or the budget numbers
budget,
of the elections?
on the budget.
I
The
just
budget
want to
for
be
the
clear.
elections. There's no
Okay.
mistake in the elections.
Okay.
There's a mistake in the budget of the elections.
Yeah.
There was just some mistakes on one of the forms, and so it shows my recommendation and the recommendation of the select board at 19,300 for salaries and
Yep.
elections.
Yep.
That should be 34,300, which was the actual request of the town clerk.
Which falls in
So
line.
I
Okay.
just want to clarify that. That's one of the notes I wanted to make to you tonight.
Thank you for pointing that
So
out.
you will get an updated budget form that includes that.
Perfect, okay. Joyce, go ahead.
I do have a question. I do have a question about the line item for the human resource. That's for 2 positions, right? The 189,000?
Actually, it's for 2 full-time positions, an upgrade of a benefits administrator.
And 1 part-time?
And 1 part-time.
Okay, because I was in the wrong business. It was that.
It's not one person.
In the wrong business.
Not you. Go ahead, Mike.
The town clerk's budget salaries went up substantially. What was that for?
So the town clerk's office, as we all know, is maybe in some bit of a flux
Yeah.
because of, we do have an article on the annual town meeting warrant to change that from elected to appointed, if the voters so choose. Also, we've been without a staff member because basically the elected town clerk left. So instead of having basically, we had a full-time deputy town clerk, we had a 20-hour assistant in the office, and then we had an elected clerk that was budgeted about $15,000. So basically, this to effectively manage the office, it would be a full-time town clerk. We haven't determined yet ultimately whether it's going to be appointed or elected, and a 30-hour-a-week assistant. And those are the only two people in the office. So
Understand.
basically, we were able to adjust some of the other accounts because of that. I think we tweaked the overtime and a few other accounts, with less need for overtime. But we feel at least until we get a determination on whether this is going to ultimately be elected or appointed, we needed that as to be able to properly cover the office.
And conservation went up substantially as well, in salaries?
Are they looking for an agent?
6%?
Well, it went from 19,000 to 39,000.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be 39,000. Went from 19 to 20. I think, you're looking at the
That's the
proposed
rest of it.
column?
The variance is 20. Yeah, it's
Look
a-
at blue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It says the
Yellow.
request,
39,000, it was
Yeah.
19,000.
and it says 39.
The variance is 20,000.
Do they have an
That's
old
what I have. and-
Look under the blue column.
I don't have blue, I can't afford a color printer, so.
Oh, yeah,
They
don't
need to
look
look at
at
You're
the
looking at the
request.
request?
Don't look at the
You're looking
request
at the
line, look at the
TA
blue
column.
recommendation, because that's what's being presented to you. The FY '26
The-
TA proposed,
The 20,200?
20,200.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I
So
see
there
it.
was a request there, and I think we still feel there's a real need there. It just couldn't fit into this year's budget, but it's something that I have talked with Camille about and been in contact with the Concom about making that change. We had looked into joining another area town, but that town decided to take a different path. But we are still looking at putting some funds in there in an upcoming town meeting to, we've gone as far as we can with volunteers and an occasional consultant. We've hit the point where we do need to look at a little more stable staff in there to help the Conservation Commission.
Speaking of volunteers, I just want to make sure on the Finance Committee line, our salaries went up by 0? Is that true? Okay. I know. Actually, Kathy, I have numbers for you. So for the ambulance revenue, in fiscal year '21, I'm rounding 455,000. Fiscal year '22, 547,000. '23, 580,000. Fiscal year '24, 755,000. And for fiscal year '25, 873,000. And this is in the Chief Barrett's presentation.
Thank you.
Yep. I just have a couple more questions just to verify here. So, can you just, on the next page, employee benefits, can you just talk about the 9.28% and some of the benefit increases that have occurred, not only as we heard from Tri-County, but here in Millis, and what the world is up against in terms of some of those expenses?
Right, so I'll start.
Sure.
And then, that is mostly our health insurance.
Okay.
And pension assessments. So our pension assessment from Norfolk County this year went up 11%. We were one of the highest increases of all of Norfolk County in our assessment increase. That just has to do with the actuarials at Norfolk County and how they go about this. It's unfortunate that we're hitting such a spike, which is difficult to deal with. We have, Jody and I have both attended meetings with the Norfolk County Board and Executive Director, as well as with a number of other managers in Norfolk County to try to argue for a more gradual increase to reach full funding. Right now, they're looking at full funding. They're shooting for 2032. The state requirement is 2036. So their desire to meet that funding goal earlier is driving those higher increases, and we've asked them to reconsider that approach. Up to this point, we've been unsuccessful. So we're gonna keep in contact, keep a dialogue with them to try to, make some more level change from year to year. I will say that this was the highest increase for the remainder of the term through 2032. I mean, there's still some decent increases in there, but none as high as 11%. So that was a particularly big hit.
So are both 11%, his pension was 11% and health was 11%?
And health insurance came in around 11%.
Okay.
Although, we looked at that and we did take a real sharp pencil to that. And we felt that between that and the pension, the 9.28 would be sufficient for this coming year. But yes, it was the biggest increase the GIC has had in a very long time.
Crazy.
And I do want to, do you have those sheets, the breakdown of the school and the municipal? I'll hand this out. So, well, I won't talk till I sit down. I won't get yelled at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the select board at their meeting on Monday, and they had talked about this a couple times in the past, but they'd like to break out the town and school health insurance costs so that we have one in the budget here for municipal.
So
and
just to clarify, this is
retirees.
only health insurance?
Only health
Okay.
insurance. And
Yep.
then one would be basically listed under one of the school budgets.
Yep.
And really so that we can kind of track the use of health insurance. And, if the town is able to, incentivize people to get off the health insurance, it might provide additional budgetary funding for the municipal departments and vice versa for the school.
Yeah.
Through, yeah.
Yeah.
Through
Yeah.
buyout or through how
course.
positions are structured. It is a delicate balance.
It is, and you never
certainly-
know. I mean, someone could lose their job and they switch over to their spouse who's an employee,
Right,
town
right.
employee.
So there are certainly, avenues to try to curtail the benefits. Certainly, the benefits are a big draw for a potential employee, but at the same time, there's significant costs for the community. So this is something that the select board voted on to have split out. So we will get you a split-out version, again, of the budget sheets when we'll send those out to you shortly.
Go ahead.
Mike, in the contract negotiations, was the split of the town share of the insurance brought up as a factor?
It was mentioned, but it wasn't something that was seriously considered at this time, but it's something that we will be looking at going forward. Again, I think we're going to do some studies of other communities and find out what the trends are and, look at proposing that down the road.
What is the current split?
It's 70/30.
70/30.
Um,
70%?
70%
Town?
town and 30% employee. I think there is one plan that's 50/50. Some of the more expensive plans are 50/50.
Yep.
There aren't many people on those, but yeah, so I just wanted to provide that to you as part of the
Thank
budget
you.
information this evening.
Go ahead, Jody.
So for school retirees, did they go onto a state retirement program versus staying covered with Millis? Because here you have 127 active employees, but you don't mention any retirees.
Sure, so for the sake of splitting this out, the active employees 66 on the town side, 127 on the school side. We have 186 retirees across the board. And the way-
Including schools.
Including school.
Okay.
So it didn't, it was very difficult to try to split out, well, you retired from there, and you retired from there, and you were before '08, and you were after '08, and so there's
Okay.
like 4 different plans that include retirees. And so at the end of the day, this is intended to be able to help manage active staff.
Okay.
And the retirees are already retired, and so we have their, the overhead of that no matter what, whether it's on the school side or the town side. So I kept it on the town side.
I think it's important to note that because it looks like we have 3 times as many town
Town.
retirees as we do employees
Oh, I
and
see.
no.
Total, like for total
Yeah.
retirees. No, that makes total
Exactly.
sense. I can even potentially split that out
And
for
the
the
num-
phone line.
I would
School,
That would
probably,
be-
town, and then retirees, I can do that.
I think that'd be a great option.
Yeah, because I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah, and then you'll see, the only other thing I wanted to make mention of for the people that are doing the math in your head, you know, we keep talking about it being an 11% increase, but you see 9% over here. And really what that came down to is us, you know, really needing to look at what we had in that account. And we had a little bit built in for those reserves to be able to handle any changes during open enrollment. And so it just, we had to kind of sharpen that a little bit and say, well, how many plans can we keep in there as extra, if you will? So really reserved for open enrollment. I split that out in here that you guys can take a look at. So that will account for the new employees that we've talked about, as well as any potential changes to our enrollments.
Mr. Chair, I want to
Yeah.
follow up on a question you had about if a town employee who is not on the town insurance, but a spouse or another who's allowed to has insurance, and that person loses a job, does the town employee have to wait until open enrollment, or are they allowed to come right up?
It's a life event, isn't
Yeah, I was
it?
gonna say
Okay, thank you, John, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, that is the case. So if there's certain events that can occur that would allow you to come on, and that's one of them.
Okay.
Loss of jobs.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that could be, you know, with what's going on nowadays. it
Yeah,
could
we,
be-
actually,
it
we've
could
had
be
quite a few
increased,
that has
yeah.
happened, even recently. We're in the middle of open enrollment right now.
Right.
I haven't seen a lot of change yet. I thought maybe we would get quite a bit because everything went up so much, but so far it's been sort of quiet.
When does
Status
open
quo.
enrollment end?
May 3rd.
Joyce, did you have a question?
I do.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, that was a good explanation. I do have a question as far as retirement, the retirees and insurance. I know that the public who works, well, like when I worked, I paid into my Social Security. I'm not sure how the municipal side and the schools do it, so I apologize for not knowing. However, do these folks that retire, have they paid into a retirement, their insurance fund or like Social Security and Medicare? I get Medicare and Social Security.
For the teachers, it's NTRS, isn't that correct? Mass Teachers Retirement System? So it's like Social Security, but for teachers.
So they paid into it?
Correct,
So then they get it?
correct.
Okay, and how about their insurance, though? Their
No,
health
no,
and-
for the, oh, sorry, Karen again,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
So, right, we're paying into the pension system from day one when you're a full-time employee, but we do not pay into the health insurance piece of it. We don't pay Social Security either. because
No,
we're
I know you
municipal
don't, right,
employees,
I knew that
So-
part.
But we do pay Medicare.
Okay. So can
Once
you
you,
get?
once you turn 65, you can go on to Medicare, you do Medicare Part A and B, then you can just get a supplemental plan.
Thank you.
Through the town, which also is a lot less than paying for the family plan and whatnot.
I think
but
that's the
just,
disconnect I had. I
yeah.
was like, okay,
I
so
don't know if
how
that
long?
helps at all, but.
Yeah.
Once retirees hit 65, they
Right.
transfer over from the
Right.
town's active insurance to basically our supplemental plans, and they go on Medicare.
So these 186 retirees are covering health insurance from a period of time till age 65.
Correct.
And the supplemental plan.
And the
Supplemental
supplement, thank
plan,
you.
yeah.
Right.
And that's lower.
It's,
Oh,
yeah, it's a
much
lot
lower,
lower,
much,
way
much
lower.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Way
small
lower.
fraction.
Forced to go on Medicare, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you
it's a-
have to go on
yes.
Medicare, and the GIC sends you a note about 3 months before you turn
you have to
65
switch
and
over.
says, hey,
Yeah.
you have until this date, or you're gonna lose your insurance.
Okay, so it's the same way
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
layperson, it's just a
Yeah.
different way,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Having not been a municipal or teacher.
We're an interesting animal.
Go ahead, Mike, are you, do you want to continue, or Jody, either one? Or have a-
I don't know if there's any specific questions about any of the other budgets here.
I just have a last question for myself, and then whoever else, on the last page. Could you just, we've kind of talked about it already, but just to summarize the difference between your discretionary and non-discretionary expenses and the increases in those two different categories?
Yes, so on the four-page budget sheet you have, everything that's, I think, do they have one that's highlighted like ours? So everything that's highlighted in yellow, that has a line across it, human resources, debt service, general insurance, employee benefits, tri-county school, those are all non-discretionary accounts. So those are all things that are paid. They're not subject to the 6% cap that is in this budget. Those are the non-discretionary items, because just like the health insurance, we can't say, sorry, we're not going to pay you the 9.5, all we have is 6, so we really don't have a choice.
And I think I'm quoting the right lines here. So the non-discretionary increase is 11.8%, and the discretionary increase is 5.93%.
That sounds right.
Other questions?
I just, when's the time to revisit the human resource position?
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Jody, go ahead.
Is the budgets for the sewer, water, and stormwater enterprise funds, are those still pending?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll-
Let's say those should be available by your next meeting.
Okay, great.
I'm just curious why they're not here now. At such a late period in the budget process, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a process. We've been working with, trying to figure out the extra employee there.
Yep.
We were looking at other aspects of that, and we have been working with Mr. McKay, and I think it usually is among the last ones, just because of our processes. It's one of the last budgets to come in.
Okay.
Like I said, we're hoping to have that.
So we have a meeting next week. We should
Yeah.
have it by next
Yeah,
week.
and we'll have it for the select board's meeting Monday.
Okay.
So,
So-
Tuesday, sorry. Select board's meeting's been moved to next Tuesday. But, next day, so that, it'll be ready by that day.
I have a follow-up.
Please go ahead, Jody.
When you send over the revenue projections, could you also send over the debt service schedules, looking forward, so we can kind of see what's coming on and what's falling off? At least for the next 10 years would be helpful.
Yeah, I think we sent out a schedule to the capital committee a little while ago, so we'll forward that.
That'd be great, thank you.
Go ahead, Mike. Hang on.
It's not necessarily related to budgets, but it is part of what the town has offered the residents, and that's the Constellation and Power contract that we have. With electric rates being fluctuating so dramatically, is that a contract of length, or is that something we negotiate each year, and have we looked at any other alternatives?
We're in part of an aggregation among a whole number of communities, and as part of that, there is, it's Good Energy. There's a company that we utilize to actually go out to the market on behalf of all the communities and try to get the best deal, and they try to time it just right. So they've gone through that process, and I believe it's a 2-year contract. Having said that, I mean, any person that's on it can opt out at any time if they think they can get a better rate and they're interested in doing that. But I believe it is a 2-year term, and I think be happy to have Mr. Weiss come in if you have specific questions about the pricing and the process. But generally, as part of the aggregation, we're with everyone else, so it's really, we go through that process.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a question of if we're going to, if we are offering it as a service to the town residents.
Yes.
Just wondered if it's something that's in renegotiation at this time, or are we in a set contract for a
Yeah, we
while?
go out to bid, through the consultant, we go out to bid every, say, maybe 2 years. And sometimes they may even decide, you know, this is a bad time. We're just going to do a 3-month agreement, and then we're going to wait to see if the market improves and do a longer one.
So it's an active process?
Yes.
Okay.
They're constantly looking at it, at the market.
I was just going to add, Mike, that's a timely question. Actually, at the Select Board meeting on the 15th, Mr. Weiss is going to be there along with Craig Gibbons to do our municipal moment, and that's what they're going to speak about. So if you have specific questions you want to send to him, I'm sure he'll touch upon that at the meeting.
Thank you very much.
We're going to shed some light on it.
Yuck, yuck, yuck.
All right. On that note, any other final questions on the budget before we move on to the agenda? All right. So, Human Resources Department location. I don't know if that's a main topic of,
I can address the location.
okay.
Yeah, the select board believes this is the role of town administration. Once the position is hired, town administration is going to find the office for them. It doesn't concern the select board. It shouldn't concern the finance committee where they're
Yeah.
located. So I'm confident that an office will be found.
Okay. I'm sure we'll find it when it's in place. Town buildings, 26 budget request. This was an add-on, I believe.
Yes, we pushed this back
Yeah.
at your last
That's
meeting. So I
correct. Yeah.
I will briefly go through this, and Karen can certainly assist in asking some of these questions as well, since she was instrumental.
So do we have any, with the,
Oh, do you have?
I don't think we have any handouts on this.
Yes, you can look at free in my hand, sorry about that.
Free cash?
You can look at free cash.
Okay.
What happened to the 48-hour advance?
That's a fluid process. It's a rolling 48. Oh, you can pass these two down. We're out. Okay, I think we all have it.
All right, so again, don't want to bog you down in too much of minutia. I know you're at the point where you're really looking at the broader budget, but, so the wages, just to touch upon that briefly, that is Bob Weiss. Part of his role is energy manager, and those adjustments are contractual. And then on the expenses, I'll touch upon this a little bit when we get to the annual town meeting warrant. But under the VMB repairs, we've had a line there since I arrived here that has fluctuated a bit. And we've had some years where we've had quite a bit of leftover there, and quite a bit, we'd had to come back to the reserve fund, or we'd have to go try to wait to repair something until we had the next town meeting. We thought it'd be much more efficient in speaking with the facilities management team, Mr. Engler and Karen and other folks that are involved with that here, that it'd be much more efficient to have an article to handle with unanticipated repairs. We believe the 20,000 will cover minor repairs and minor maintenance needed in the town buildings. So we decided to kind of change that model, and in speaking with the select board about it on Monday night, they supported that approach. And I've spoken with Bob Mullaney, the superintendent, and he is very supportive of that approach as well. And again, this is something that I've had extensive discussions with John Engler on. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to afford to set this up this year, but we do believe we have the funds, available funds through free cash to set this account up. Some of the frustration we've had is, again, we sometimes have an issue. It's primarily this building. I mean, occasionally we've had an issue. We've had one or two issues with the library and the fire station and the police station. But this building and the middle high school do deal with a lot of unanticipated problems. The middle high school, I believe, is 65 years old. And this building is, I think, over 110 years old, at least parts of it. And it is prone to having unexpected issues come up. We have improved our maintenance dramatically over the past 3 or 4 years. And we are keeping up with all the the filter changes and the checks and the flushing of the systems. But there are parts of the system that are not exposed, not easily exposed, the way this building was built, and sometimes, you know, unexpected things happen, and sometimes those things are expensive. So, so we feel we can adjust this account accordingly in order to accommodate that, and I think it's a good way to go forward. And again, I'll talk about that a little more when we get into the articles for the town meeting. So really, that's one of the big changes. I think we did have a few items that transferred out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sorry.
There's a couple zeros there.
Sorry. Yeah, a lot of zeros there. We have done a lot of changing as to where we're paying things out of. It's not that we're necessarily zeroing things out, but we have moved them into other budgets. So we moved quite a bit into IT this year. It just makes more sense. It should never have really been in town buildings, but we didn't have IT, so we're kind of still, you know, moving some of those things. The rest of this is nothing significantly increased or decreased, for that matter. It's pretty level service, unless you have questions.
Kathy, do you have a question?
I just want to remind them that in the past, as Mr. Guzinski knows, the Community Preservation has approved work done within a finite reason for this building. And you've been involved in it heavily, Ms. Karen, so keep that in mind when you're.
Yeah, and thank you for that.
It's a historical building.
That's a good point, and certainly for anything that we can do any planning for, that would be the approach we would do. We would see if it would qualify for that, or we would work through the capital committee for any known projects that we can plan ahead for. This is really a funding mechanism we're looking at for unanticipated issues that come up with these very old buildings.
And I would say the majority is to do with flooding. We've had flooding issues, and HVAC is the worst.
The common ones.
And the most expensive. We just had a $14,000 bill recently.
Yeah, so water infiltration and HVAC are the
Mr.
two
Chair.
biggest
Hang on,
issues.
Pete. Jody first.
Why is library electricity in this account versus over in library?
That's been there for quite a long time, since before I started here. And some people have asked, why do we don't move it? The short answer is if we move it into the library budget, we're going to have to increase the books and materials budget in the library by 19% of that
Because of,
for accreditation. So
Okay.
whatever the library budget is, 19% of it has to be books and materials to stay accredited with the state.
so that's a state law.
It's a state
So
law.
even though electricity and utility costs have gone up substantially, they're still keeping that percentage the same.
Yes.
Just making that point.
Thank you.
Let me just jump in. I know. It's open mic night. Anyway, I think, yeah, it is. On, this might be for fiscal year '27. Have we consolidated the utilities from the other departments yet, or not?
That's a good question. So we
Yeah.
looked at that as well, and we had a lot of discussions about that, also with our new finance director. And we decided to leave back up the bus here. For the electricity piece, we pay all of the electric bills in our office. So those all come through us. However, the line items are for the particular budgets, for the particular departmental budgets. And that's just so that if we ever want to take a look, we can say, hey, you know, this is exactly what the fire department is costing, or, you know. It's just easier to separate it out that way. We did have a discussion with the chiefs the other day about perhaps paying all of that through our office and kind of maintaining that. It's still a little bit fluid. We haven't decided, you know, kind of what makes the most sense, but.
That's not happening though for
We
fiscal year
did move,
'26.
that being said.
Yeah.
We did
yeah.
move quite a bit. So we didn't move electricity, we didn't move heat and fuel.
Yeah.
No utilities, but we basically, everything else did get
Yeah,
moved.
okay.
So,
Mr. Chair.
Pete Berube.
Just on that topic, and I do have another question, but on that topic, you know, when you're looking at enterprise-wide across buildings and having them on one budget, you tend to, your conservation efforts and success tend to go out the door. When the departments don't control their budget. they're not as concerned with turning the lights off and
Good point.
just having good energy
I
management.
agree with you.
Very
That's
good
the
point.
biggest argument. That is the biggest argument, to keep them in their different
Accountable.
silos for tracking.
Yeah.
So I think if we were gonna centralize them, we would need to have someone to have the allotted amount of time to review those on a monthly basis to make sure, but it is.
Superintendent loves doing it, and so
Yeah.
so do the chiefs.
Yeah. We have centralized it, like we said, are the smaller things like, pest control or trash removal. We find efficiencies by, partnering with the other departments, but you're right.
And I did have a question, only, Jody's done. Okay, sure, done. Are you setting yourselves up or the town up for either a large or potential reserve fund request or competing for free cash capital expenditures by reducing the maintenance and repairs budget by close to $100,000?
We actually reduced the repairs budget by 60,000 I believe from the current budget. I know there, actually, no, you're right, 80,000, sorry, 80,000. So basically, as I mentioned, these repairs, there's a ebb and flow to them. So some years they're very low, some years they're very high. You mean,
Let me ask you this.
either way, we would need to do the repair. If say it's a major repair, we would need to do the repair. And there have been a few years, I don't know if you recall, we've either had to come back to the finance committee to ask for some reserve fund transfers to handle these emergency repairs, or we've tried to wait until May when we can do the interdepartmental transfers at the end of the year. So I would say on this one, I think oftentimes we end up having money just sitting in here.
That was going to be my next question. Like for 25, the adopted numbers, did you execute all of that $193,000?
No.
No, and
So,
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
The other reason, as you get to the warrant, not to spoil the surprise, but there is a $300,000 fund for building repairs that basically replaces this. And that fund rolls over year after year, so if we don't use, and we better not use, I'm saying that to him,
Yep.
$300,000 in the first year, that whatever's not used carries over. So it's a better way to budget for it.
And we did do that. If you remember, we did have an article that was specifically for HVAC repairs, and it was for Town Hall and the Fire Department, because they were having many issues over there.
Yeah,
It
that was
an
for
article.
$75,000, and that
Exactly.
did last for about 2.5
That lasted
years.
until, right, about 2 weeks ago.
okay, thank you.
Cool. Can we move on to the personnel plan?
Certainly. Did the committee get my memo that I did forward it to Deirdre? I hope you got it.
Stand by. It might be online. Oh, here it is. It was online. It was online.
Sorry, yep,
It's on the website. Oh, is it in there? Is it in there? Okay, sorry.
yeah. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to go through the changes.
Give us
Oh,
1
sorry.
second here. It's personnel, it's email.
Oh, the email.
Yeah, she did.
I think they got it.
Yeah, memo, yeah.
We're just trying to find it.
Yeah, Deidre printed it, right?
There
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. Thank you.
Everyone got it?
Mine was hiding.
Okay.
Well.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So every spring, we do bring forward a few personnel plan adjustments. The Select Board did review and approve these at their meeting on Monday for recommendation. Really, the task with the personnel plan and its updates is usually related to adjustments to collective bargaining units, their agreements, and trying to keep the compensation and overall treatment of non-union employees somewhat equitable to those that are protected in collective bargaining agreements. Certainly don't want to punish those few people that are not in those unions. So with that in mind, just want to talk about I think the 6 changes. The first one is an adjustment of the steps within grades 11, 16, and 17, so that right now, there's the changes, one year might be 2.3, the other year might be 2.8, it might be 2.7. It's really all over the place, and we thought it best to streamline those, and we are trying to do that in the collective bargaining agreements as well, so that they're a flat 2.5 for each step. So that is a recommended change. The next one is the removal of step 1 on the step scale and the addition of a new step 10 with a 2.5% increase that matches what the recently ratified SEIU agreement has. All the new union agreements we've tried to standardize the longevity payments in all the unions. Some unions were much lower than others and vice versa. So in order to make that equal the union agreements, it's just an increase of $100 in each category of attainment of years. And again, that matches the collective bargaining agreements. There's a little bit of change in the bereavement language, bereavement leave, by adding grandchild and domestic partner, and increasing the bereavement period from 3 to 5 days for immediate family. Again, immediate family, the text is in the personnel plan, but it's usually, you know, an immediate family member, parent, child, grandchild, domestic partner. And for 2.5% COLA to the positions in the personnel plan, which again matches most of the union agreements. And just want to talk about the public records officer a little bit. When the state put this unfunded mandate in about 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of towns did immediately either hire a person or they, you know, created as part of a position to have this public records officer. And when the law first went into place, we'd maybe get maybe 2 or 3 requests a month. But over the past year, it's been probably 3 or 4 a week. People use the public records as a way to avoid having to do their own research, basically. So instead of coming out and going to different, they just put in a public records request for, you know, I want these records from the assessors, I want these records from the treasurer. And so someone has to spend a considerable amount of time organizing and tracking down this information, and it is a considerable time sink. So we'd like to add a yearly stipend of $5,200 for a public records officer position. So those are all the changes in the personnel plan that are being proposed for this coming town meeting. And again, they're pretty much all in line with the union agreements that were recently ratified by the select board and the individual units.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I was reading that report that the column that Center sent about the need for a human resource, and it says in it that, and this might be the document you're talking about, the personnel director shall summarize his activities annually in a report which shall be published in the FinCom report. Have we gotten that, or is?
You have not. You have not received a formal one.
Okay.
It's really a matter of bandwidth and time. So it's not something that, you know, we
It
willfully.
just says in the report that this
Yeah.
is one of the
Yeah.
town administrator's
And
requirements, so.
unfortunately, there's a lot of tasks written in there
Yeah.
that because of the changing needs and times are very difficult to maintain. And again, that's another reason we're trying to not get too far behind on the human resource end of things. There are, and I don't want to speak too much of it publicly because it's, you know, obviously, we have concerns that we're just, because of time constraints, we're not keeping up with everything in the human resource realm that we need to be. I think Mary Cardy maybe touched upon some of that when she spoke with you recently, but there are things on a regular basis we should be doing, and there's just no time to do it within the time constraints we have currently. To be quite honest, since I started here, a lot of the functions of this office has really been understaffed. We've been trying to do as much as we can with the staffing available, and we've tried to keep up with the increasing demands, not just with human resources, but with other things. But the current model we have is just not sufficient.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering regarding the FIOA, what's it called, the one you requested?
Like the public records law?
Public records
Yeah.
law. If you could provide a brief synopsis of because if it's a $40 an hour position, that's 130 hours. Is that, and last year, it was, I heard, other towns have said it was a election, so you get a lot of questions about, what the election result, like you said,
Yeah,
doing the
yeah.
homework for someone. Just a summary about where, do you send it out to the department that's concerned?
Yeah,
and
so what
then-
basically happens now is we have a public records email for the town.
Okay, I saw that,
So I
yes.
think we have that advertised, so people basically send their request through that, and then the public records officer has to take that, has to triage it, has to send it to the department that's under its control, has to track it. And again, you might have 10 of these going at once, based on the number you have and the time to get it back. You have to respond in 10 business days. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to give the documents, but you have to give some response.
Yeah.
And the limit that you can charge people, I think, is 5 cents a copy and $25 per hour for staff time total. That's the max you can charge anyone for, the cost. Usually we don't charge certainly if it's a resident, it's a small request, we don't charge anything. We get requests from commercial ventures all the time that want like all these charts of, how many real estate transactions have there been, we want a list of the tax amounts for these properties. That sort of stuff can be time consuming, and if it is, we do come up with an estimate, send it to them and ask them to send us a payment before we do any substantial work
Sure.
on it. But the reality is, it is an unfunded mandate on the town, on every town in the Commonwealth, and, it has been difficult to upkeep with everything else.
Just to be mindful of time, I just want to keep moving here to the warrant articles. Everyone good? So, with that said, do you want to go through the warrant?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Or the
I can go
highlights?
through and just highlight the changes.
Yeah, please highlight the
since we last
changes, that's
met.
fine, because everything else is the same.
And just in the interest of time.
Yeah.
So, most of the changes are merely gonna be the addition of budget numbers into the articles.
Yeah.
Article 1 is for unpaid bills, so we've added in the amounts there. Just really quick, some of these are just issues that occurred where someone wasn't paid the full amount they needed to be paid, and we didn't find out about it until after the end of the fiscal year. So we are looking to make those payments. With the one for the select board, the town of Millis Water Sewer, that's actually for the apartment at Oak Grove Farm. That was the water bill. And by the time the person had moved out and there was a bill. So that's basically the general fund paying the water and sewer departments for the use of those resources. So that's like an internal payment. Let's see, the next one. Just Article 8, the capital article, just want to, I can't remember, but the vehicle for the building department is no longer in there. The select board decided not to add that. It didn't make economic sense to move forward with that, so just a reminder of that.
Yep.
That takes us to Articles 10 and 11.
Mhm.
Article 10, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, about the tri-county debt payment. So that is not in the operating budget, that is here to be paid out of free cash. The amount is not that high. I believe the amount is around $350,000 roughly. The remainder of the funds in that account are there to save for the next fiscal year.
Yep.
So they'll help with the tri-county debt for the next fiscal year. So basically, what we did is we just made sure we had a little buffer for next year on that liability.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chair, if I just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, on the time, is, bond, and I don't understand this, but is bond ratings affected at all when you use free cash to pay a debt like?
No,
Okay,
I don't believe
thank
so, no. So Article 11, I think we talked about a little bit before.
We did, yep.
So again, this is for the unanticipated building repairs. This will certainly lessen our trips to visit you, hat in hand, and we'll make sure we can repair buildings promptly when we have a problem. The next altered article
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Pete.
may I go back in time and ask about Article 10?
Yes.
So has it been decided that the capital fees from Tri-County will be handled as debt or as operating expense going forward? Is this temporary until they're done?
At this point, it's temporary. I mean, the board will be considering, based on economic and financial factors, on whether to bring this back before the community at some point to ask for a debt exclusion for the remainder of the costs. They don't feel this is the right time to do that, but it's something that is still on the table.
But as of now, it's operating, right?
Yeah, for now it's
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's operating, right?
No.
No, this is free cash.
Or, I'm sorry, free cash, excuse
Free
me.
cash.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, last year, we set aside about 400,000 to stabilization in case we needed it for Tri-County. Jody has proved her worth by coming up with a new plan to put it into this Tri-County fund. So we think with this and what we should have for free cash next year, certified in November, we probably get up to FY '29 before we need to start looking for other alternative sources of it. But we're trying to extend it as long as we can, and if we can get out to FY '29, that's quite a few years out still. Things happen in that period that might help us out,
Like debt falling off or?
like the state approving an 80% reimbursement, debt falling off, a lot of things. There's a lot of options,
All right.
but we get through quite a few years with this kind of a model using the free cash, and then we can assess it as we get further out.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I've just got a comment that personally, or that an override like this should be on voted on every year. And when it doesn't pass, you just say, okay, folks, we're using this money, and now we can't do roads, we can't do sidewalks, we can't. Let the people know that as a result of them not voting to support it, Mr. Schultz, that this is what the town is losing on.
That could be an option, but right now we have the free cash money to do it, and it seems like I would not want to penalize the town by not doing roads if we have free cash money to pay for Tri-County and do roads. And I think we're in that position up till '29 if we.
And we know what
budget this right.
Tri-County
You have
looks
a new
like as
school-
of right now.
And you have a new school potential override coming up. I
Yeah,
mean,
we've
this
got
is
a
not
lot
the
of
time
things,
to
but,
do this. Yeah.
but I'm putting those in separate compartments even
Agreed.
when I talk about it. This is if we have enough money to do roads and Tri-County out of free cash, I don't want to not do roads, and I don't want to vote on it and have it fail, and then there's no point. If we need the money, that's an option. We can do one omnibus that pays for it for the 30 years, or we could go every year, and that's a discussion we can have when we get to the point of
That time.
proposing an override.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Chairman, the next article I think may have changed. I don't know if you had originally received the list of properties.
Which article?
Article 15.
There's a list of
No, we didn't have the property.
properties here.
Yes, so this has been added.
Wow.
So this is
A lot of
the
properties
total
here.
list of town properties.
I have
We've-
it here
Yes.
from the other day.
Oh, okay.
From our previous warrants. I
Okay.
copied it, so.
Well, the article was in there, but I don't know if you had
Yeah.
the list of properties.
Okay, yeah.
So, this list has been reviewed by a number of town officials, including Mr. Weiss, and we've reviewed those as to whether any of these properties have restrictions on them, any of them would potentially have, any real municipal use. As you see, most of these properties are less than a quarter of an acre.
Yep.
With just a couple of exceptions. And we've determined that none of these properties really has any value at this point to the town moving forward. So the goal is to get these properties sold back on the tax rolls, and maybe made some use of by some of the citizens in the community who may abut some of these properties.
I see.
And you can see most of the properties, the values are most of them are under $2,000, but there are a few that are in the $20,000,
Yeah.
$25,000 range. So this is the list of, this is the list of land, and certainly, if you have any questions going forward, we can, about any particular parcel, we can try to answer those.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Could you provide the committee with a map
Yes,
location?
yes,
It should
I
be
have,
for like
I have Mr. Weiss working on
Okay,
on an
thank you.
updated map that includes
Perfect.
all these.
highlighted each one
yes.
in relation to the abutting neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Articles 16 and 17 are zoning articles. 16 is quite lengthy. This is for the FEMA flood insurance rate maps and change. We have to do this, otherwise we're gonna run into a foul of the of FEMA. So I've added the language of that in there. I think the planning board just finished their work on those last night. And then the last 4 articles were there, but we've added the dollar amounts for those.
Great.
For the $40,736.55 for the unemployment insurance fund, $300,000 for the Section 111F injury leave indemnity fund, $50,000 for the other post-employment benefits fund, and $100,000 to the stabilization fund. We did check, our stabilization fund, and right now we're about $400,000 over our recommended 5% base. So this would bring us $500,000 over.
Yeah, if we could
Go
get
ahead.
the most recent numbers for the stabilization fund, I know with the market going everywhere, it's gone up, it's gone down, so it'd be good to have that final number.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jody.
Also, do we have any plan to have the planning board in to discuss Articles 16 and 17, or should I just reach out to them directly?
I would reach out to them directly.
Yeah, the flood zoning one, I think, is state mandated law.
Yeah, it's just we haven't had any discussion of these warrant articles in this forum.
True.
Mr. Chair, I had someone ask what happens if their property becomes floodplain because of beaver dams.
There's every
That's just
scenario out
Causeway
there.
Street.
Any other final comments?
Get those gunshots.
It doesn't work that way. Floodplains are developed by the state. It takes them years to develop them, and they go up, and then they map it all out. So if you have a temporary puddle, it doesn't go on any map. So it doesn't work that way.
What's the length of temporary?
But
Which,
I
how
do
long
have a
is
beaver
temporary?
guy if anybody needs one. Go ahead.
You do?
Absolutely. But it's not
Put it
beaver
on the
season
website.
anymore. You can't
It
trap
is.
them. It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
It ended, I think a month ago. What are we in? It ended a month ago. It'll open up
Yeah.
again in the fall.
Okay. Good add on there.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Pete.
I would ask that the planning board do come and present. I mean, if we're gonna vote on it, I think we should discuss it. Even
Okay.
Even if it's for 5 minutes, I mean.
Mr. Chair, you all set with me?
I am.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you,
very much.
Mike.
Well, the human resource job.
Oh, yeah, actually, come back, Mike. Sorry. You're right. No, that was a good call. What's your question for human resources?
Let me just get to this page if I might, Mr. Chair. I don't see any line item for expenses, computers, pencils, software, subscriptions. It's just the salaries?
Yes, for the first year, we'll absorb them in the
Okay.
select board budget.
Okay.
And if we need to make an adjustment, we'll seek that at the fall town meeting, but I don't believe that'll be necessary.
Perfect. Thank you.
It was very generous of the select board budget, and
Yes.
maybe finance committee can donate some pencils and pens. and
We're
paper
team
clips.
players.
Maybe.
Could we just be reminded what the existing departments didn't do, Mr. Chair, that would warrant something like this? We've heard about upcoming lawsuits. Have there been any lawsuits? Because it appears that the existing human resource director prevented all that from happening, so, and
I don't
well
think we
done.
need to, I don't think we need to go into specifics. I think there's substantial reasoning to change the structure and the functionality of the way the town's operating, and the HR functions a necessary role as the landscape has changed over time. And to your points that you just described, there's many multiple tasks that need to be covered in all these things. So it's more of an adaptation to the time than to become outdated.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would just also add that in addition to the fact that we're really unable to get a lot of these tasks done, and
Yep.
and certainly we can come up with lists of the things, but again, We don't want to put the town at risk by providing too much information along those lines. But at the same time, there's a lot of lost opportunity in my office because there's a lot of things that we're unable to really work on and track down. I mean, I'm certain this will provide more opportunity to think more strategically.
And you have a
know, from
person
the
that's
town
dedicated to
administrative
research
office.
benefits and reduce costs, future costs.
And also to, again, better go after grants, better manage projects, and again, think strategically, which unfortunately, when staff is spread thin, you become more reactive than proactive, and that's something that I think we'd like to change.
Yeah, I just want to add,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could, that this position bumped 3 policemen, originally 4 DPW, down to 2 a few weeks ago, now 1. And the school resource officer, which would probably be the police, that those positions affect townspeople, I think, more than the safety of the town, the betterment of the town, than as important as an HRC is to the actual employees of the town. It's not a great benefit
Okay,
to the
that's,
population.
I 100% disagree, but that's fine.
Just really quick, Mr. Chairman.
School board
Certainly, these types of positions are not as sexy. They don't get out there to be seen by the public in firsthand as much, but they're no less important to the community in the broader picture. And I think I've mentioned at prior meetings that, yes, if we had additional police officers, firefighters, more DPW workers, they would provide additional services. And that does certainly add to the community. But these positions will help us not only reduce our liability, but they'll actually help us save money down the road. So again, we do believe that they will pay for themselves over the long term. And the one thing I need to point out with if we got rid of the human resource department, we could add 3 police officers. That's not really, it's apples and oranges because the human resource department is outside of that 6% cap. So if we got rid of the human resources, we might be able to afford a half of a police officer based on that cap. So that it's really, we're looking at the general municipal departments to grow at a certain amount and the school to grow at a certain amount within reason. This is outside of that. It's non-discretionary because it's really to help the entire community not only operate better, but to be able to save money and find other opportunities. So
Joyce, you have the final question?
Not so much a question, but probably just a comment. I attended the meeting Monday night and I asked a lot of questions, and I did ask about the police officers, and I put, the similar concerns. And my phone was going off with a lot of questions from the people who were out in TV land.
Right.
And so I did some research, and I was questioning it a little bit too, human resources versus these positions. But then when I really analyzed it and saw the benefits, I actually am swayed. And the reason I'm swayed is this person will be dedicated to seeing where the costs can be. They will be able to implement full-time what the responsibilities of an HR person is. Hopefully, they'll be able to find money so that we're using incorrectly for whether it be benefits or salaries or jobs that possibly are needed or not. And hopefully, once this person has been here for a year, they'll have found the money that we will be able to possibly get that police officer. And so I actually think it's a benefit to the town. And surprise, surprise.
How do you find money for a position? She said find
Well,
money.
yeah.
Please, could you explain that, Mr. Chair?
I think we're going to be moving on. It's all good stuff. We can discuss it at the final recommendations next week as well.
But we have a benefit of, he'll be here for that.
Be here, yeah,
Thank
he'll
you.
be here. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you to the selectmen and everybody else
Yes.
who participating in all this.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we vote to approve the minutes from March 19th as written.
Second?
It's been motion and second to approve the March 19th meeting minutes for the Millis FinCom. All the discussion? Why don't we just go around the horn? Pete?
Yay.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Thank you. Pete Underhill. Thank you. That-
Pete.
That approves.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I move the committee vote to approve the minutes as written from the March 26th FinCom meeting.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the March 26th Finance Committee meeting minutes. Discussion. And Pete?
Aye.
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 Aye. Abstain.
Pete Underhill? All right. Any other board committee liaison updates or old or new business?
I have from the COA, I have some sad news. Bill Brown, who has been a longtime member of the Council on Aging Board, just passed away. And there will be some updates as far as when his service is. If I find out soon enough, I can let everybody know. But it was very sad. He's had quite a lengthy illness, and he was a lovely man and a kind soul, and had been on the board for a long time. And it's really hard to. He's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
So it's really hard.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
There's also an update on the shared services, the study with the Boston Gerontology. There's going to be discussion on that at our board meeting tomorrow morning, if anyone can make it to the board. And Candace Avery from the Millis Housing Authority will be speaking at our COA meeting tomorrow morning at 9. Our meetings are open to the public. They're not closed meetings, so it would be nice if anybody wanted to find out about housing, if anyone wanted to find about the study, and just come and see us.
Okay, thank you. Just to go down the article list. So Jen, you got reassigned the new articles. Yep.
10 and 11.
Just wanted to make sure. And yeah, that was actually a good move. So, so next week is final recommendations. Please work on your summaries for your articles and get those in to Deidre as sooner than later. That'd be great. And I'll start working on the FinCom report. And then we should be good to go for next week.
But we can't get them into Deirdre until we have our recommendations.
You can have a draft. You can work on it.
That's true.
You can work on it. Couple revisions.
Good rebuttal.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Adjourn. Second by Jody. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Pete Underhill.